Welcome back to another episode of Rethink Real Estate. Today, auction versus traditional. I'm going to give an example that I've given a few times now over many different podcasts. However, it's deep into the episode, and I think that, as I make mention at the beginning of this one, is that thanks to everybody that's listening, but realistically, you might not be listening all the way through. And it's an example that has come up very frequently over the last little while in a few conversations that we're having. This example is how auction is the most efficient process in a fast-moving market or for a fast-moving property to get the most amount of money. I'm going to be doing another episode here shortly to show you how the auction process leveraged in a slower-moving market and how that can work in order to help the reputational elements of a property, but hope you enjoy. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. This topic is a little bit timely to some of the conversations that I've been having out there in the marketplace at the moment, and I thought it would be a good topic to bring back up. I'm undoubtedly have talked about this in the past of a certain situation where ultimately we've gotten more than a multiple offer situation traditionally through the auction process in a fast-moving market. I wanted to do a couple of episodes where it was showing you the benefit of auction in a fast-moving market, but then also showing you the benefit of auction in a moving market as well with some case studies. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because is that, again, I've gone through it before, but I think it's been deeper in episodes. And, let's face it, is that one, to those that are out there at the moment that are listening and are frequent listeners and listen to the full episodes, I believe that you're very few that get through all of them. And again, I can fully appreciate that. A lot of me is a lot of me. I get it. Okay. But that said is that I wanted to start bringing out some of the finer points in some of those longer episodes as little snippets that you can use within your business. But also, again, to speaking to those people that are out there at the moment, we've had an increased volume of people reaching out to us from the podcast from all over North America looking to do auction. So again, as we're getting a little bit more proof of concept through reaching different audiences doing this, I wanted to make sure that I brought out some finer points that also showing you the power of the auction process. One of the things that I wanted to bring up today was in a fast-moving marketplace, one of the questions that we get on a very frequent perspective, and this is from our entry into the Bay Area marketplace. When we went up to the Bay Area marketplace, I've said this before, is that the Bay Area market has been one of the fastest-moving marketplaces in North America, quite possibly the world, for the last decade. Maybe it might even be fringing on 15, 20 years, really, just based on the tech and the innovation and the volume of money that is in Silicon Valley and in the Bay Area itself. Now, the interesting part about that is the volume of more real estate that we've done as sort of that San Francisco Bay Area marketplace has gone through a little bit of a change. You've seen with the remote working situation, a little bit more steam come out of the marketplace. But it's funny, when we first entered that market, is that one of the biggest questions that we would get in the first degree is that, Ben, why would we do auction when we kind of already do auction? For those that don't know, a little bit of background is that San Francisco, the Bay Area market, is very much known for, one, full disclosure up front. So anybody that understands auction already knows that we get all reports, disclosures, and anything that would typically happen for the property that goes into, but when it goes into escrow or when it's under contract and you're going through that due diligence period, is that we get everything done up front. Now, the Bay Area already does that, is the only marketplace in North America that has done that historically over the last decade. Disclosures.io is a program up there that really is. It's interesting. Homelight bought it for tens of millions of dollars, I believe it was. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but that's one of the things that we've been doing with our auction process all over North America. Is full disclosure is the most important thing. So when we went up there, we used the Bay Area as an example because they already did that. It was a lower barrier to entry for the auction process. It was easier turnaround, a little bit more instant gratification for us as an auction team. Is that we'd make a phone call, someone would say yes, let's do it. We do a presentation to the sellers. They say yes, and then we can turn it around in 3 days because they've already done all the reports and disclosures. But where I'm going with all of this, the first part of this was many people were saying, well, Ben, we basically do the auction process without doing an auction. And we didn't really understand what that meant. then we dive deeper into it, is that most agents in the Bay Area, and the average sort of worked out around 7 days, they would put an offer date on the property. So a date of which everybody had to submit offers by. They would also do below market value listings. So meaning that it was a little bit less of a price than what the seller would want. It wasn't a drastic amount less, but it was certainly a lower price than you would ever expect. Okay. Definitely not as low as our bidding to start from prices on the auctions to really cultivate interest and remove the price from the equation. But where I'm going with that is that what we had to do when we first entered that marketplace is that we had to give case studies of the auction process in a quick moving situation outperforming traditional. Now, that's one of the things that I want to make sure that I mention. And again, I've said this before, is that I'm not blaming agents for saying that they're underselling homes. I'm not pointing fingers in any way, shape, or forms. People don't know what they don't know. You've got to remember that our responsibility as an auction business is to actually point out the deficiencies of traditional real estate. There is no data medium that actually goes and looks at the insufficiencies of traditional real estate like what we do and what we compare it with. So as you can appreciate, is that we come up with these situations to defend our process being more efficient. Now, that said, we had to start proving that in a multiple offer situation, auction was getting between 8 and 12% more than what that multiple offer situation was getting. Now, it's all good and well to quote that. You have to give examples. So one of the things that we started to do was look at traditional real estate transactions in a particular marketplace of the Bay Area. And if we had an auction transaction of very similar format, we would compare the result that we would get versus the traditional. And the one that I want to make sure that I point out to everybody, and again, you may remember this from something that I've been through in the past, because this is the one standout one that we did in the first degree that is responsible for probably getting us a great deal of business in the Bay Area. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom property in original condition in the Marina District. Okay. Now, this property was going on the marketplace at a list price traditionally with a traditional agent of around $800,000. They put an offer date on that property. Okay. They put an offer date on that property of 7 days, as mentioned. And what happened? They had 4 offers prior to auction. They had 4 offers on the property in a multiple offer situation, and the property ended up selling for $980,000. Now, listed at $800,000, selling for $900,000. If you're just looking at that individual situation, that's an exceptional result. You know, I would be thrilled. Okay. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we pointed out, is that at the end of the day, just because you believe that you got the most money in that situation doesn't necessarily mean that you did if you used a simple process that didn't create the transparency needed in a high frequency situation of a multiple offer situation. Now, where I'm going with this, okay, is that I believe that a property is not worth what a buyer is willing to pay. I believe it's worth what a buyer is willing to pay in competition, sure, but what it's really worth is what a buyer is willing to pay in transparent competition. Now, let me go through this situation. 4 offers on the property, okay. List price was at $800,000, sold for $980,000 within 7 days, and they had 30 groups of people through the front door over that showing window for people to submit their offers. The next part of this is what I want to talk to, and this was a unique opportunity that we had. We had a property, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, exactly same square footage in the exact same building, also on the second floor. For people that know San Francisco buildings down in the Marina District, is that, as you can appreciate, there's very similar floor plans on each individual floor as the way that they've been chopped up in the building. And this one specifically was. Now, this property, so that we had a really good use case, we did a bidding to start from at $800,000. Now, that said, this property went to auction, or started the auction process and went live 2 weeks after that property going into escrow. Not closing, but into escrow. Okay. So it was a pretty quick close, I believe. I think it closed in 3 weeks, that traditional sale. So it hadn't closed 100% yet, but we'd found out from the agent what it had gone into contract for, and certainly got an understanding. But we wanted to give a direct comparison. $800,000 was the bidding to start from on the property. We then did a 3-week lead up to auction. So a little bit shorter than our normal 4-week. Okay. But 3 weeks, I believe, I think it was, once it went live, I think it was 2 weeks and 6 days or something along those lines. However, where I'm going with this, folks, is I want this direct comparison to understand. We put the property back on the market. We put the property on the market. It was a new listing. Bidding to start from was $800,000. Okay, that was what we listed it at. In the public remarks, it said live auction bidding to start at 800. And all of a sudden, we'd restricted the showing windows to be only 1 hour during the week and 2 hours on the Saturday for people that were going through for the first showing. Okay, and we got a gigantic volume of people through. Okay, now in that 3-week time period, we had a little over 60 groups of people through the front door, so more than double the traditional listing. Obviously, that's the case because we had it on the market for more than double the time. It was triple the time, pretty much. Okay. But that said, is that we got a total of 11 offers on that property prior to the auction day to really give us a very firm grasp of where everybody stood. Now, you could throw a blanket over those 11 offers. They were all relatively close. There wasn't an individual standout offer that was so much higher than everyone else. Now, in an auction situation, a lot of people say that traditionally they like the fact that people can't see what others are offering, so they get an opportunity where the buyers might pay exceedingly more than anybody else. That opportunity still applies with auction for people submitting offers prior to auction. 98% of people who end up being registered bidders have already tried to submit an offer to stop the auction. So that still is applicable beforehand. If there is a complete outlier that wants to pay an exorbitant amount more and that no one's going to compete with them, we could still look at that. But you could throw a blanket over these 11 offers. Out of those 11, we ended up with 8 registered bidders. Some of the other ones dropped away because they just weren't going to be competitive from a perspective of their contingencies that they wanted to bid with. Now, all in all, we then took the property to auction. We ended up selling it for $1,065,500. So $980,000 is the end result of that traditional property. Selling this auction property that's pretty much exactly the same, okay, for $1,065,500. So that's still a great amount of money more. But that said, the thing that was the most staggering element of all of this is that the person that ended up paying the most amount of money for this property came at the end of week 2, on the weekend of week 2. Now, this is the most staggering thing in all of this. Now, we could say that that's an anomaly in this situation, but we have made sure to keep statistics against traditional listings locally. Okay, but then one of the major things that we've kept from a statistic standpoint, which I don't see many people do this because they don't have an end date. They're just trying to sell a traditional listing as quickly as possible. When I say I don't see many people doing it all, what I meant to say, I don't see anyone doing it. Okay, is that we keep a statistic of when does the best bidder or best offer prior to auction come in to the property for the first time. The funny part about this is that 47% of the time, the highest bidder on auction day or the person who puts the highest offer in prior to auction that might be accepted comes at the beginning of week 2, beginning of week 3, end of week 2. So between 14, okay, to 16 days on the market is 47% of the people who pay the most amount of money for a property come through at that time. And one of the things that I'm seeing increasingly in this marketplace where properties are spending a little bit longer on the market, more agents are promoting that they're able to sell a property quickly if they are. And there's a whole nother rabbit hole that we go down with all the commission suppression and all of that type of stuff, that if we're selling properties within 3 days and all of this type of thing, that a lot of people are up in arms about how much agents are being paid and whatever it is, okay? But that's a whole nother conversation. But when I lead into this is that 47% of the time, certainly in the Bay Area anyway, okay, or really in any marketplace that we do our auctions in and we're keeping this statistic, 47% of the time, if a property is sold, okay, before day 14 on the marketplace, I can categorically say that 47% of the time they've undersold it. Now, it's a difficult thing for you to look at, but one, with auction, we're getting more money. 2, we're guaranteeing that we're seeing the entirety of the marketplace. Now, this was a story that I told a seller recently when we were talking to them about auction. They had a property in the Bay Area specifically. It was a $10 million property. It was on the marketplace for 21 days. Okay, obviously a bit of a higher price point for 21 days. And the agent came to them and asked them for a price reduction. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the efficiency of that agent asking to obviously keep the momentum going. I think that's better than most. But realistically, is that they said, no, what are you crazy? At 21 days, we're at $10 million. The following day, they got a full priced offer. And this story resonated with the seller. It really resonated with them because ultimately it leaves auction as an opportunity to really make sure that there is a process of elimination. People think that it's easier to go through a traditional sale because they can do it really quickly, okay? And I hope that that isn't the thought process for a lot of agents, because at the end of the day, instant gratification isn't going to get you the long-term results that ultimately you need. But that said, is that this is a direct comparison of how auction is a far more efficient process with its transparency, but in a high, fast price point moving market. Most of the time, we can only get agents to speak to us when they've had a listing on the marketplace for a longer period of time. It's usually, at the moment, used to be that 45-day mark. At the moment, people are reaching out to us between 21 and 30 because I believe that people's expectations of things moving are a lot quicker. But where I'm going with this is that usually we can only get people to talk to us once they've had a home sitting on the marketplace for a long period of time. They want to see if there's any low-hanging fruit that they can sell the property quickly, when auction really is the ultimate method in order to get the highest and best price. And it's been proven so often, and we've got so many statistics and so many case studies of comparing traditional to auction. That said, though, I'm obviously a little bit contradicting in this comment. Sometimes you do need to have a property sit on the marketplace traditionally for a period of time for process of elimination with that seller. Because sometimes when you take a property to auction with the wrong client, first off, is that they can use auction as another sort of blocking point to actually realizing the marketplace. They blame auction instead of actually reflecting on their expectations. So I know that's a little contradicting and maybe a little bit confusing, but in essence, it's about each individual case study around seller, around property, and making sure that it's another tool in your tool belt versus a thing you go to in a last resort. Hopefully this helps. I'm going to come back in another episode showing you how auction has provided us with case studies with the leverage where no one else has been interested. And in a typical situation, in a traditional sale where a home's been on the marketplace 45, 60, 90 days, and one buyer walks into that property, that buyer and their agent or that buyer individually knows that they have complete leverage. And I want to talk to you about how auction can provide the most amount of leverage regardless of how long it's been on the market or the reputation of that property. Thanks for listening. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.